You're watching a senator defend foreign students with economic data, while a witness accuses those same students of being potential state-controlled threats whose families face death if they don't cooperate. This isn't a debate about visa policy. It's a collision between two entirely different definitions of national security. Senator Tim Kaine just stood in a hearing and made the case for talent. Virginia went from bottom quarter to top quarter in income by attracting foreign-born residents. International students contribute $44 billion to the economy and keep tuition low for American students. But then the administration cut research funding, revoked visas without warning, and enrollment dropped 17% in 1 year. Kaine asks how we balance security with staying a global talent magnet. The answer he gets from one witness is chilling. We are concerned about people who come from a nation that puts pressure on their families, that even threatens them with death if they do not cooperate with the state interest. That's not a security screening process. That's guilt by nationality. It redefines every Chinese student, no matter their intentions, as a potential coerced agent. And when another witness points out that Indian students pose no such concern, the response reveals the framework. This isn't about individual risk assessment. It's about treating an entire nationality as a threat category. What you're about to hear is how fear of foreign influence turns talent recruitment into ethnic profiling, and why $44 billion in economic contribution gets dismissed the moment someone mentions state coercion.
By the way, I'm watching body language, and I see oftentimes agreement among the three of you on something said, occasional disagreement, but I'm struck that there is. So just to say, Senator Kaine.
Thanks to the panel. Thanks to the chair for holding this important hearing. When I was born in 1958, 1 out of 100 Virginians had been born in another country, and we were bottom quarter per capita income. And today, 1 out of 8 Virginians was born in another country, and we're top quarter per capita income. And the last time I checked, only one other state had moved in that time from bottom quarter to top quarter, and it was North Dakota, and they discovered oil. We didn't discover anything except if you try to attract talent, talent will grow, and the institutions and companies that want to be around talent will come. And so I think this is a discussion, Mr. Chair, where there's a lot of agreement, but it's about trying to find that balance. How do we not shut off our traditional role as this talent magnet by having policies toward international students or researchers that are too punitive? And I worry that we're striking the balance the wrong way. In academic year 2023-24, international students contributed about $44 billion to the American economy. And the point is, it's not just about the money. The money paid by foreign students helps keeps tuition low for in-state students at many of our universities. They are viewed as kind of a cost center. And it's not just a benefit to them, it actually benefits in-state students with lower tuition. So how do you find the balance? This administration has canceled billions of dollars in federal research, making many of our researchers vulnerable to being recruited by universities in other countries. Not necessarily China, but Canada and the UK and universities in Europe. We're losing researchers because of cuts to research funding. Last spring, the administration shocked international students enrolled on our campuses through sudden visa revocations. And so as a result, we're seeing a very sharp decline in foreign students enrolling in American universities. Just in 1 year, the difference between fall 2024 and fall 2025, there was a 17% drop in enrollment of foreign students at U.S. universities. And many of my universities in Virginia see this sharp decline not only in undergraduate programs, but graduate programs as well, and it does affect their finances, and it affects their ability to hold tuition low for in-state students. I really worry about the long-term consequences of the United States seeming more and more hostile to foreign students. There's an economic reality. You mentioned the Nobel winners and the CEOs who come for our universities and stay and create great economic opportunities. There's also a bit of a diplomatic reality, and we see this in the military too, the training programs that we do for foreign military leaders. They go back to their country as maybe a mid-level officer, and in 10 years they're a minister of defense, and in 20 years they might be president, and they have this experience, a positive experience of America from the training they've gotten at the National Defense University, the Army War College, or some of our universities. So how do we find, I mean, this is really a question to all of you, how do we find the balance of protecting security in the way you want to, but continuing to maintain the position of the United States as the magnet for the most talented people in the world? That's the way our nation stays young at 250, by continuing to attract talented people. How do we do that? Mr. Daly, start with you, and I hope to hear from the others as well.
Well, I think we've done it very well, as I said, over the past 10 years by hearings and discussions like this, by bringing academics, issue experts together with Congress and the national security agencies to discuss these issues. We have to remain very vigilant, but we also have to recognize, and there's no choice about this, that while we want our innovation system, our science and technology, our military abilities to be #1 in the world, in fact, the knowledge generation system is global. There's nothing we can do about that, right? And so we have to engage with other countries, including China, which, yes, has stolen a great deal, and which is also increasingly innovative, and we have to be realistic about that. You know, in 2016, the Nature Index, they said the world's top 10 academic institutions, 9 were American, 1 was Chinese. In 2024, 8 of the world's top 10 by peer-driven review measure, 8 were Chinese and 2 were American. So it's a global enterprise. We have to bring people in from all over the world. And yes, that's a vulnerability. And so the answer is working closely like this, as we have been for a decade. We've got a lot more to offer than China in the long run. And I think there will be vulnerabilities and there will be failures, but we can prevail in this.
I'm out of time, but I'm just assuming, Dr. Wood and Mr. Singleton, you agree that this is sort of a balance issue. We don't want to cede our position as the global talent magnet. And so getting this security right is really important, but we have to do it in ways that continue to make the most talented people in the world want to come to the United States and hopefully expand our opportunities here for American citizens. Is that fair?
May I just add that the largest percentage of international students studying in the United States come from India. Nobody, to my knowledge, has raised questions that Indian students coming to the United States pose a security risk. There are many other nations in the world who send their students to study in the United States with no security concerns whatsoever. This is not a matter of checking people off by ethnicity. That's a civil rights violation. We are concerned about people who themselves might be perfectly innocent, but come from a nation that puts pressure on their families, that even threatens them with death if they do not cooperate with the state interest. That's a situation that we cannot tolerate as a nation. And our security concerns here in this one particular instance have to override our concerns for intellectual openness. As for the high standing of Chinese universities, a lot of that comes out of paper mills. They are generating papers by the tens of thousands, most of which are just utterly worthless. The intellectual vacuity of a lot of the Chinese publications exists solely for the purpose of getting them elevated in the international rankings. I'll stop there.
I yield back. Thank you.
Mr. Singleton, I was just in the hallway a minute ago, and this happens from time to time.
What happened in that hearing wasn't just a policy disagreement. It was a demonstration of how national security frameworks can shift from threat assessment to categorical exclusion, and why that shift has consequences that go far beyond the individuals being screened. If you understand the logic each side is using and where they diverge, you'll see how legitimate security concerns can become justification for policies that undermine the very competitive advantage they're meant to protect. Start with Senator Kaine's argument. He presents Virginia's economic transformation as evidence that attracting foreign talent creates prosperity. 1 in 8 Virginians now foreign-born, state moved from bottom quarter to top quarter income. International students contribute $44 billion annually, keep tuition lower for in-state students, become Nobel Prize winners and CEOs, create diplomatic relationships when they return home as leaders. This is the talent magnet thesis. America stays competitive by being the place the world's best minds want to come. Kaine's concern is that research funding cuts, sudden visa revocations, and a 17% enrollment drop signal we're abandoning that advantage out of fear. Then comes the rebuttal, and this is where the framework shifts. The witness doesn't dispute the economic benefits or the talent contribution. Instead, he reframes the entire discussion around coercion. Students may be innocent, but they come from nations that threaten families with death to force cooperation with state interests. Therefore, security concerns must override intellectual openness. That's not a counter-argument to Kaine's data, it's a different moral calculus. It says even if foreign students generate billions in value and advance American research, the risk of coerced espionage is too high to tolerate. The problem is how that calculus gets applied. When another witness points out that Indian students, the largest group, raise no security concerns, the response reveals the underlying logic. This isn't about screening individuals for actual risk. It's about treating entire nationalities as suspect because their government might coerce them. That's categorical exclusion dressed up as threat prevention, and it has a name, guilt by association, applied at national scale. Here's why that matters. Individual threat assessment asks, does this person have ties to foreign intelligence, access to sensitive research, or indicators of coercion? National categorical exclusion asks, does this person come from a country whose government might pressure them? The first is investigative. The second is presumptive. And when you apply presumptive exclusion to Chinese students but not Indian students, you're not making a security determination. You're making a geopolitical one. You're saying the threat isn't the individual, it's their nationality. The consequence is both immediate and long-term. Immediately, universities lose 17% of international enrollment in 1 year. That's not just revenue, it's research capacity, graduate program viability, and the pipeline of talent that becomes American innovation. Long-term, you signal to the world's best students that America is increasingly hostile to them. They go to Canada, the UK, Europe, and when they become leaders in their fields, they build those countries' competitive advantage instead of ours. You don't get that talent back by reversing policy 5 years later. Trust is harder to rebuild than visas. There's also the diplomatic cost Kaine mentions. When foreign students study here, they return home with American experience, relationships, and often favorable views of democratic institutions. When military officers train at our war colleges, they become allies in their governments. That's soft power, it's influence built through education rather than coercion. When you replace that with suspicion and categorical exclusion, you don't just lose students. You lose future ministers of defense who remember America as the place that educated them versus the place that rejected them. The paper mill argument about Chinese university rankings is a deflection. Yes, some Chinese institutions game metrics. That's irrelevant to whether Chinese students studying in America pose a categorical threat. It's an attempt to discredit Chinese academic achievement to justify treating Chinese students as inherently risky. But the risk assessment should be, does this individual student pose a threat, not does their country of origin produce fraudulent research papers. What's missing from this exchange is any discussion of how to do individual threat assessment well. How do you identify actual coercion versus assumed vulnerability? How do you protect sensitive research without blanket exclusions? How do you distinguish between students who want to contribute to American innovation and those who might be pressured to steal it? Those are hard questions. They require resources, expertise, and nuance. Categorical exclusion by nationality is easy. It's also ineffective because it assumes all members of a group share the same risk profile, which is never true. If any of this concerns you, demand the distinction between individual assessment and categorical exclusion be maintained. Support funding for robust security screening that evaluates actual risk, not presumed nationality-based vulnerability, and recognize that when America stops being the place the world's talent wants to come, we don't become more secure, we become less competitive, because the knowledge economy doesn't respect borders, and if we're not attracting the best minds, someone else will.